with Conrad Lighty this morning and put 500 good plunks in my pocket. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Yet I don't know what's the matter with me today. Maybe it's an attack of spring fever or staying up too late at Verge Gunch's. Or maybe it's just the winter's work piling up. But I felt kind of down in the mouth all day long. Of course, I wouldn't beef about it to fellows at the Roughnecks table there, but you ever feel that way, Paul? Kind of comes over me here. I've pretty much done all the things I ought to do. Supported my family, and got a good house, and a six-cylinder car. Built up a nice little business. I haven't any vices, especially except smoking, and I'm practically cutting that one out, by the way. And I belong to the church and play enough golf to keep in trim, and I only associate with good, decent fellows. And yet, even so, I don't know that I'm entirely satisfied." It was drawled out, broken by shouts from the neighboring tables, by mechanical love-making to the waitresses, by strenuous grunts as the coffee filled him with dizziness and indigestion. He was apologetic and doubtful, and it was Paul, with his thin voice, who pierced the fog. "Good Lord, George, you don't suppose it's any novelty to me to find that we hustlers, that think we're so all-fired successful, aren't getting much out of it? You look as if you expected me to report you as sedacious. You know what my own life's been."
"I know, old man."
"I ought to have been a fiddler, and I'm a peddler of tar roofing. And Zilla, oh, I don't want to squeal, but you know as well as I do about how inspiring a wife she is. Typical instance last evening. We went to the movies. There was a big crowd waiting in the lobby, us at the tail end. She began to push right through it with her 'Sir, how dare you' manner. Honestly, sometimes when I look at her and see how she's always so made up and stinking of perfume and looking for trouble and kind of always yelping, 'I'll tell you, I'm a lady, damn you!' why, I want to kill her. Well, she keeps elbowing through the crowd, me after her, feeling good and ashamed, till she's almost up at the velvet rope and ready to be next let in. But there was a little squirt of a man there, probably been waiting half an hour. I kind of admired the little cuss. And he turns to Zillian and says, perfectly polite, 'Madam, why are you trying to push past me?' And she simply, God, I was so ashamed, she rips out at him, 'You're no gentleman.' And she drags me into it and hollers, 'Paul, this person insulted me.' And the poor skate, he got ready to fight. I made out I hadn't hurt him. Sure, same as you wouldn't hear a boiler factory, and tried to look away. I can tell you exactly how every tile looks in the ceiling of that lobby. There's one with brown spots on it like the face of the devil, and all the time the people there, they were packed in like sardines. They kept making remarks about us, and Zilly went right on talking about the little chap, and screeching that folks like him oughtn't to be admitted in a place that's supposed to be for ladies and gentlemen. And, Paul, will you kindly call the manager so I can report this dirty rat? And, maybe I wasn't glad when I could sneak inside and hide in the dark. After 24 years of that kind of thing, you don't expect me to fall down and foam at the mouth when you hint that this sweet, clean, respectable, moral life isn't all it's cracked up to be, do you? I can't even talk about it, except to you, because anybody else would think I was yellow. Maybe I am. Don't care any longer. Gosh, you've had to stand a lot of whining for me, first and last, Georgie." "Rats! Now, Paul, you'll never really what you could call whined. Sometimes I'm always blowing on Myra and the kids about that whale of a realtor I am, and yet sometimes I get a sneaking idea I'm not such a Pierpont Morgan as I let on to be. But if I ever do help by jollying you along, old Paul Insky, I guess maybe St. Pete may let me in after all." "Yeah, you're a blowhard, Georgie, you cheerful cutthroat, but you've certainly kept me going."
"Well, why don't you divorce Celia?"
"Why don't I? If I only could! If she'd just give me the chance! You couldn't hire her to divorce me, no, nor desert me. She's too fond of her three squares and a few pounds of nut-centered chocolates in between. If she'd only be what they call unfaithful to me, George. I don't want to be too much of a stinker. Back in college I'd have thought a man who could say that ought to be shot at sunrise. But honestly, I'd be tickled to death if she'd really go making love with somebody. Fat chance, of course. She'll flirt with anything, but you know how she holds her hands and laughs. That laugh, that horrible brassy laugh, the way she yaps, 'You naughty man, you better be careful or my big husband will be after you.' And the guy looking me over and thinking, 'Why, you cute little thing, you run away now or I'll spank you.' And she'll let him go just far enough so she gets some excitement out of it, and then she'll begin to do the injured innocent and have a beautiful time wailing. I don't think you were that kind of a person. They talk about the demi-virgins of stories."
These whats?
But the wise, hard, consorted old married women like Zilla are worse than any bobbed-haired girl that ever went boldly out in this here storm of life and kept her umbrella slid up her sleeve. But rats, you know what Zilla is, how she nags, 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 how she wants everything I can buy her and a lot that I can't, and how absolutely unreasonable she is, and what I get sore and try to have it out on her. She plays the perfect lady so well that even I get fooled and get all tangled up in a lot of why did you says and I didn't means. I'll tell you, Georgie, you know my tastes are pretty fairly simple in the matter of food, at least. Course, as you're always complaining, I do like decent cigars, not those Flor de Cabagos you're smoking."
That's all right now. That's a good two-for. By the way, Paul, did I tell you I decided to practically cut out smoke?
"Yes, you. At the same time, if I can't get what I like, why, I can do without it. I don't mind sitting down to burnt steak with canned peaches and store cake for a thrilling little dessert afterwards, but I do draw the line at having to sympathize with Zilla because she's so rotten bad-tempered that the cook has quit, and she's been so busy sitting in a dirty lace negligee all afternoon reading about some brave, manly Western hero that she hasn't had time to do any cooking. You're always talking about morals, meaning monogamy, I suppose. You've been the rock of ages to me, all right, but you're essentially a simp, you—"
What do you get that simp, little man? Let me tell you.
"Love to look earnest and inform the world that it's the duty of responsible business men to be strictly moral, as an example to the community. In fact, you're so earnest about morality, old George, that I hate to think how essentially immoral you must be underneath. All right, you can—"
Wait now, what's—
"Talk about morals all you want to, old thing, but believe me, if it hadn't been for you and an occasional evening playing of the violin to Terrell O'Farrell's Ocello, and 3 or 4 darling girls that let me forget this beastly joke they call respectable life, I'd have killed myself years ago. And business, the roofing business, roofs for cowsheds. Oh, I don't mean I haven't had a lot of fun out in the game, out of putting it over on the labor unions and seeing the big check coming in and the business increasing. But what's the use of it? You know my business isn't distributing roofing. It's principally keeping my competitors from distributing roofing. Same as with you. All we do is cut each other's throats and make the public pay for it."
Look here now, Paul, you're pretty darn near talking socialism.
"Oh, yes, of course. I don't really exactly mean that. Suppose, of course, competition brings out the best, survival of the fittest, but I mean, take all those fellows we know, the kind right here in the club, now, that seem to be perfectly content with their home life and their businesses, and that boosts Zenith and the Chamber of Commerce and holler for a million population. I bet if you could cut into their heads, you'd find that 1/3 of 'em are sure enough satisfied with their wives and kids and friends in their offices, and 1/3 feel kind of restless, but won't admit it, and 1/3 are miserable and know it. They hate the whole peppy, boosting, go-ahead game, and they're bored with their wives, and think their families are fools. At least when they come to 40 or 45 they're bored, and they hate business, and they go. Why do you suppose there's so many mysterious suicides? Why do you suppose so many substantial citizens jumped right into the war? Think it was all patriotism?"
Babbitt snorted. What do you expect? Think we were sent into the world to have a soft time and, what is it, float on flowery beds of ease? Think man was made just to be happy?
"Why not? Though I've never discovered anybody that knew what the deuce man really was made for."
Well, we know, not just in the Bible.